if you're a Bears fan, I would start making my plans now to go to Ohio, because not only will you have 3 guys in the Hall of Fame minimum, we still don't know about Jared Allen, but at the same time, you will also probably be playing in the Pro Football Hall of Fame game with that many players in the game. You know, the last time the Houston Texans were playing in the Hall of Fame game, the game involved the number 1 pick in the NFL draft on one of the rosters. History has a funny way of repeating itself, doesn't it? Welcome everybody to JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Gerald Gary, and I representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, which was announced the other day at the league meetings down in Orlando, and it will be an interconference battle between these 2 teams behind me right here, the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans. This isn't really a shock to me. It shouldn't be a shock to a lot of people. I said for a while I expect the game to be Chicago against Houston, and it is Chicago against Houston. Usually they decide the Hall of Fame game based on who is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they'll pick the teams based off of what teams those players that are getting inducted play for, and it makes sense why the Bears and the Texans are those teams. Now, let's start with the Chicago Bears. They have 3 players that are getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this year that play for them. You have McMichael, you have Devin Hester, and you have Julius Peppers. They're the only team with multiple players to get inducted. So from that perspective, it makes a ton of sense. Usually, if a team has multiple players, especially 3 players that get into the Hall of Fame in a single class, they are going to get the game. We saw in 2022 that happened with the Raiders. They had the most players of anyone of any of the teams. They had Cliff Branch, the wide receiver, the late great wide receiver, and they had Richard Seymour. Even if they didn't have the most notable names of the bunch, they had the most, and they got it. The Chicago Bears, they have the most with 3, so they got it. Now, you might be saying, it might be a bit of overexposure. They played in the Hall of Fame game in 2018. It's their second appearance in the last 6 years. The league doesn't care about that. The league does not care about overexposure, nor should the fans, nor should anyone really care about overexposure, because, again, it's about the guys who are getting into the Hall of Fame. The Cowboys played it in 2010, 2013, 2017, and 2021, so they played 4 times in a 9-game stretch. Again, there was no game in 2011 due to the lockout, 2020 due to COVID, 2016 due to a field issue. So there were no issues there. 4 times in 9 years, no one bat an eye. Bears, second appearance in the last 6 years, not an issue because, again, they've got a lot of guys going into the Hall of Fame. And on top of that, the Bears might not have another true Hall of Fame player for a while. It might be a long, long time before we see an actual Bear get into the Hall of Fame like Devin Hester. And maybe you could make the argument Julius Peppers. I know a lot of people associate him with Carolina, but he had a great stint in Chicago as well. Yes, Jared Allen will get in eventually. It seems like he's going to get in next year or the year after that, but he's more associated with his time with Kansas City and especially the Minnesota Vikings. His Bears tenure is a footnote. So this might be the last time you get Chicago in the Hall of Fame game for a long time. Now, there are going to be questions about the Bears with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Caleb Williams, will he play in this game? No, he's not playing in this game. No one really plays in the Hall of Fame game. If Williams does play, it'll be for a drive at most. Don't expect Caleb Williams to play in this game whatsoever. Expect a guy like Tyson Bagent to get the start for the Bears, but it is an angle to at least consider that the Chicago Bears could have Caleb Williams, at the very least, traveling with the team and on the sidelines. They might interview him during the game. NBC might be thrilled about that. As for the Houston Texans, this is their first true Hall of Famer. Yes, Tony Vaselli got in. No one really considers him a Texan. Yes, Ed Reed got in. He played about half a season there. This is the first time the Texans have an actual Hall of Famer that you can say without any shadow of a doubt made the Hall of Fame because of his time with the Houston Texans. I'm not surprised if the Texans are in the Hall of Fame game for that reason. It's the same logic they used for the Jaguars in 2022. Even though they don't have the biggest fan base compared to other teams, biggest market, the Jaguars got Tony Vaselli in for the first time. He was their first Hall of Famer. Texans, their first Hall of Famer really with Andre Johnson. So that's the logic they are using here. Now, it's the first time the Texans are in the Hall of Fame game since 2002, when they were an expansion team. The NFL loves putting expansion teams in the Hall of Fame game. We saw it with the Cleveland Browns in 99, the Jaguars playing the Panthers in 95. Texans are in the Hall of Fame game for the first time in more than 2 decades. Now, you could say you might have tried to save them for when J.J. Watt goes in first ballot in 2028, even though you were making the argument about overexposure again, that doesn't really matter. But you have to figure that that game will be Patriots-Buccaneers because Tom Brady is getting in that same class. Brady retired the same year that J.J. Watt did. So this is your one chance to get the Texans in for a long, long time because, let's be honest, who else is making it into the Hall of Fame right now that's a true Texan? They're not going to have anyone for a long, long time. Andre Johnson's the last guy for a while. It's going to be years and years before they have another guy that could get in. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins in about a decade, maybe, but that's even pushing it. There's such a logjam at wide receiver. I'm not sure if Hopkins even gets in. That's really the next conceivable guy after J.J. Watt. So this is the last time you have a chance to use the Texans really until maybe 2037 at the earliest. So I don't see any reason why the Texans should not be playing in this game. Bears-Texans makes a ton of sense. Now, I know that they play each other in 2024. I know that's a meeting because the NFC North plays the AFC South this year. That means nothing. That means absolutely nothing. In 2023, the Cleveland Browns play the New York Jets in the Hall of Fame game because you had Joe Thomas and Darrelle Revis getting in. They also met in the regular season. Didn't affect anything. 2022, Jaguars got Tony Baselli in the Hall of Fame. Raiders got Cliff Branch and Richard Seymour. They played in the regular season that year and the Hall of Fame game. Meant absolutely nothing. The NFL usually does not like scheduling teams against each other in the preseason that will play in the regular season, unless it's an in-state rivalry that happens every year, like Jets, Giants, Steelers, Eagles, the Floridian teams. Jaguars, Falcons, I know it's not in-state, but they always play in the preseason every year, regardless of whether they play each other. There's an exception for the Hall of Fame game, though, because that's an added preseason game, and no starters really play in that game. Very few, at least. Josh Jacobs played for some bizarre reason in 2022, but other than that, I can't think of too many starters that have played in the Hall of Fame game over the last few years. Now, in terms of the other teams that could have gotten the Hall of Fame game, I'm looking at the possibilities of why it wouldn't be as good. So really, there's 4 other teams you could have got with. The Indianapolis Colts, because they have Dwight Freeney. The Denver Broncos, because they have Randy Gradishar. The Carolina Panthers, because they have Julius Peppers. And the San Francisco 49ers with Patrick Willis. Starting with the Broncos, it makes sense why they are not getting the Hall of Fame game. Randy Gradishar, a great player, deserved being a long time ago, but he's an older player via the senior committee. They usually steer away from that because those are always the least popular of the Hall of Famers. Those are the guys that fans are least likely to travel for. So Denver Broncos, it makes sense as to why they are not the team. The Colts with Dwight Freeney, you might save them for next season. Usually, again, overexposure is not really a thing with the Hall of Fame game, but Reggie Wayne could get in next year. Adam Vinatieri could get in next year. You have to think toward the future. If Wayne and Vinatieri get in next year, let's say, again, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but if they both get in the same class, you want to use the Colts then. But you don't want a team playing the Hall of Fame in back-to-back years. So why burn the Colts now when you don't have to? Save them for some time in the next 5 years. The Panthers with Julius Peppers, yes, obviously Julius Peppers is a phenomenal player with Carolina. He made the Hall of Fame primarily because of his time with Carolina. But he was also a prominent player on the Bears too. So you might as well go with the larger team, the closer team geographically and in terms of proximity, the better team, the team that has the first overall pick that could potentially play again. He's not going to, but potentially. Bears fans are more likely to go to the Hall of Fame than Panthers fans due to proximity and a larger number of players inducted again. 3 Bears getting inducted this year, 1 Panther. It's almost like Monopoly. The Panthers have Boardwalk. The Bears also have Boardwalk. Julius Peppers is Boardwalk. But the Bears also have Pennsylvania Avenue and New York Avenue. The Panthers have no other pieces of property. The Bears are in the better spot of the Monopoly game. So that is why the Bears are over the Panthers when it comes to Julius Peppers. It really wouldn't make a lot of sense to put the Panthers in and not the Bears because, again, the Bears have more players in the Hall of Fame, and Peppers is a part of both of those teams. And then the San Francisco 49ers with Patrick Willis, you could have done that. They haven't played since 2000, but again, could be thinking about the future. Again, I know overexposure is not really a thing with the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, but Frank Gore becomes eligible in 2026. You figure based on his longevity that he will be in the Hall of Fame sometime before 2030, and they might save the Niners until that point. But either way, Chicago Bears, Houston Texans, Andre Johnson getting to the Hall for the Texans, 3 Hall of Famers for the Chicago Bears. I've said that this was going to be the Hall of Fame game for a long time. We got official confirmation that it will be the game. So August 1st, 2024, which happens to be my birthday, it will be a phenomenal way to start my 27th year on this planet. It will be a phenomenal way to start the NFL season. Bears, Texans in Canton, Ohio to kick off 2024 and kick off the preseason in just about 4.5 months' time. But what are your thoughts on the Hall of Fame game? Do you think it should have been the Bears and the Texans? Do you think the game makes sense? Do you like the Hall of Fame game? Do you not like the Hall of Fame game? What would you change about the Hall of Fame game if you would change anything at all? Who do you think gets inducted into the Hall of Fame? Who do you think is the best Hall of Famer from this class? And by who do I think gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, I mean, who do you think next year gets inducted? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out my main channel, JaguarGator9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JaguarGator9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.